Why do you think Americans are so down on President Biden right now?
What do you mean?
I know you don't like to talk about polls like the 5 of 6 swing states that he is losing right now to somebody who is a criminal defendant. But more broadly, it doesn't seem like anything you guys are doing is making him more popular. Why do you think that is?
So you mentioned a criminal defendant, your words, not mine. So I want to be super mindful about how I answer this question because obviously that criminal defendant is also in the race for 2024 election. So I'm going to be super mindful there. I will speak more broadly to what the American people are going through. Like, we understand. We are sensitive enough and open-minded enough to understand that this is that not just this country but globally people have had to deal with a pandemic and coming out of that pandemic. We understand that even you think about gas prices and because of Putin's war, what that has occurred that led to gas prices increasing. And the president had a lot to deal with when he walked in. A lot of crises. And this is a president that took that very, very seriously and took action. The American Rescue Plan, no Republicans voted for that, but we ended up trying to work to get an economy that's fairer for all and make sure that we don't leave people behind and creating 15 million jobs, an unemployment rate that's under 4%. We understand that people are still feeling this. We get that. And we're not blind to that.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We have to talk about another casualty of the Biden economy. Bidenomics, which basically can be defined as high inflation, high interest rates, high labor costs, all things that contributed to Red Lobster collapsing. If you guys didn't know, Red Lobster just announced that they were closing more than 100 locations. Now, this is not a surprise to me because like I've been telling you guys, the magical jobs report that the mainstream liberal media keeps citing as some type of indication that the economy is great is fake, okay? It is fake because a lot of those jobs are government jobs. They are hospitality jobs, which aren't high-quality jobs, and also healthcare jobs, okay, which is subsidized by the government, right? When you look at the private economy, right, the private sector, they're not doing so well, okay? I've done a ton of videos about tech layoffs, okay, about people coming out and saying, hey, this economy is not great, right? We probably are in a recession when it comes to the private sector, but the government spending, the massive government spending that is fueling inflation, thanks to, again, the Biden administration's policies, whether that be the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, or the infrastructure bill that was passed in Congress. All of these things are contributing to the inflation that we are experiencing today, okay? And the inflation has contributed to Red Lobster collapsing. Now, Red Lobster's collapse is more complicated than just Biden's economy. Biden's economy is definitely a factor, but this story is, again, more complicated than that because Red Lobster is also a casualty of private equity, right? They basically soaked all the money out of this company when this firm called Golden Gate had bought the business for about $2.1 billion in 2014 from Darden. Now, Darden is the same restaurant group that owns Olive Garden. Now, Darden had ended up unloading Red Lobster because Red Lobster was struggling at that point, and investors had pressured the company to offload Red Lobster, okay? So, again, Golden Gate Capital, the private equity firm, decides to buy it. And then at that point, they decide to sell most of the real estate that was owned by Red Lobster in order to finance the deal, okay? So they sell all the real estate, as in Red Lobster had owned the buildings that they were operating in. And this private equity firm decides to sell it all, which at that point creates a lease expense for the restaurants, okay? So this private equity firm basically reaps all the gains of selling the real estate while leaving lease expenses for Red Lobster to deal with, which means that during the good times and the bad times, they have to now pay a lease, okay? So that is an added expense that they have to deal with, and it didn't really work out that well because they weren't able to really improve the chain or turn around the performance of the chain, leading them to then sell their stake in Red Lobster to Thai Union Group in 2020. So Thai Union Group takes over. Now, this group doesn't really know how to run restaurants. So they end up hiring a CEO that really doesn't know what they're doing. And they end up offering these deals, like, for example, Endless Shrimp, during a time, Biden's economy, in which the cost of everything is going up. Okay, so they offer this Endless Shrimp deal that they usually offer for like a month, but they decided to make it permanent. And people started to come in and really take advantage of this deal to the point where it led to massive losses. And fast forward to today, now Thai Union Group is saying, hey, we want to get rid of Red Lobster. We're trying to basically sell it off. It might go bankrupt, and we're closing up a bunch of locations as a response. Okay, so once again, we have another major chain that, has been kind of a staple of, casual dining going out of business in the Biden economy, right? So without further ado, let's react to this because, again, this is a very interesting story.
All right, this is news a lot of people did not like hearing today. The popular restaurant chain Red Lobster is in the red and could soon file for bankruptcy protection.
Today, the Florida-based company shuttered dozens of its locations, including here in San Diego. CBS 8's Richard Allen is here with more on what led up to these financial troubles and what the future holds for the casual dining pioneer. Richard.
Well, that's right, guys. Now, the Red Lobster in Mira Mesa was one of up to 120 locations that closed throughout the nation today, with a restaurant supply liquidator planning to auction off their kitchen equipment. And while there are still a couple other Red Lobsters here in San Diego County that are still open, what their future holds is uncertain.
No, I wasn't expecting this.
This is the whole plan. This is the day plan, and then go do.
Disappointment for Kat Gurney and Jaden Douglas, finding out that the Red Lobster in Mira Mesa closed with no warning.
I just wanted shrimp.
I go for the biscuits personally.
This sudden shutdown here in Mira Mesa is one of dozens of abrupt closures nationwide today, an unwelcome surprise to loyal customers.
Yeah, I assume they were doing pretty well because there's always advertisements. They still do advertising. So if they have money for commercials, I'd assume they have enough to keep their company open.
And while the company is still open, Red Lobster is considering filing for bankruptcy protection, as first reported by Bloomberg. One of the company's recent financial missteps, its all-you-can-eat Endless Shrimp promotion rolled out last summer that contributed to $20 million in losses for the fiscal year.
Way too many people participated at way too low of a price. And so the gross profit on that menu item was way too low, and it caused Red Lobster to miss their earnings.
San Diego-based restaurant analyst John Gordon says that Red Lobster's financial struggles started years earlier, though. When it changed hands in 2015, its real estate was also sold, meaning that Red Lobster had to start paying rent for its locations, rents that keep rising.
So that put a cost pressure onto Red Lobster.
In 2020, a company called Thai Union assumed Red Lobster's majority ownership.
And they just didn't know what they were doing, okay?
It's also faced the same challenges as many casual dining restaurants, especially since the pandemic. Red Lobster in particular has attracted a somewhat older customer base.
The issue with an aging customer base is that they go out to eat less often, and they tend to be driven by coupons and special deals.
Yeah, especially in, again, Biden's economy, right? So you have people who are deciding that, hey, we're going to eat at home now, okay, because the cost of food to go out is too high. It's too expensive, okay? I mean, when you have $20+ an hour minimum wages that is going in effect in some of these blue states like California, also combine that with the fact that, again, the cost of food itself is going up. Prices have to continue to go up. People are deciding, hey, you know what? I'm just not going to go out, and I'm going to keep it 100 with you. Back in the day when I was like a child, going to Red Lobster used to be like special. Like, oh, Red Lobster, right? We're going to Red Lobster, okay? That's a fancy restaurant. At least that's what I used to think, okay, personally. I mean, who knows? I mean, some people may, consider it to still be so. But the other problem that Red Lobster is facing is not that they necessarily have competition within like their own tier of restaurants in regards to like, seafood, but a lot of people are, choosing to actually eat their seafood at steakhouses. Okay. So you have these steakhouses that specialize in steaks, but they're also offering seafood as well. And people are saying, you know what, if I'm going to eat seafood, or if I'm going to eat shrimp, lobster, fish or whatever, I'd much rather go to a steakhouse rather than a Red Lobster, especially when you're talking about a special night out type of occasion with the family, right? If you got to choose between paying a ton of money to go out and eat, again, for a special occasion, you want to go to a nice restaurant, hey, you probably are much better off just paying for an actual like good, fancy restaurant or whatever, versus going to a Red Lobster that has increased their prices to the point where it's like, if you're middle class, you're like, you know what? I'm just going to skip it because it's just not worth it for the average middle class person, considering the price increase. Again, if you're going to spend that much money, again, you would probably much rather go to like a legitimate, like nice restaurant than, a Red Lobster. Okay. So I think their target audience of people that used to really go to this restaurant, again, middle class folks that want, a nice restaurant without breaking the bank. You can't do that anymore at Red Lobster because, again, the price increases are just too much. And that's also one of the reasons why they're struggling, okay? It's just not the brand that it used to be, okay? People, I just don't think see Red Lobster the same way they used to see it back in the day, because me personally, I can't speak for everybody, I used to see going to Red Lobster as something special, right? But, now it's almost like, well, Red Lobster is just kind of like, hey, it's just like a whatever restaurant. But again, overall, what you have here is an economy that's not favorable to a lot of these chains that are struggling because, again, the cost of capital is high, right? Interest rates are over 5%, okay? So if you want to borrow money in order to try to, stay alive or to refinance your debt, it's going to be expensive to do so, okay? You're going to take on much higher interest payments in order to stay alive, okay, because of, again, Biden's economy, inflation causing interest rates to go up. And then, again, you have to deal with the increase in price in food. And again, Red Lobster decided, I don't know why you decided to offer endless shrimp as the price of shrimp is going up, okay? So they completely missed the ball. Maybe they thought that the endless shrimp would bring people in the door, which it kind of did, but not enough to offset the fact that those people were coming in and they were essentially taking advantage of this, and they weren't buying enough other things in order to offset the loss that they were taking, offering the endless shrimp, which again could be a product of people just not having enough money to buy the extra things that Red Lobster was probably hoping that they would buy, right? So they're more incentivized to come in and, again, to take advantage of these deals to the point where the company can't make any money because people are just choosing not to buy the extra stuff. It's one of those things where it's the economy and also just a series of really bad decisions, right? Bad management that has led to this chain collapsing, okay? But again, the current economic conditions, let's say we didn't experience the inflation that we're experiencing, if interest rates were at the same level they were before the pandemic when Trump was in office, they may have been able to survive, right? But because of the inflation, because of the pandemic, because of the economy that has formed as a result of that, it just seems like this is the nail in the coffin, that this restaurant more than likely is going to go away, okay? Again, I'm just saying this is the typical story that is being told about what's happening in the private sector, not what is being told to us in the media, which is that the economy is booming, right? All of these companies are doing great, right? Everybody's doing well, okay? It's just a Republican conspiracy that businesses are struggling and that people are struggling, right? This is what they say. But again, every time you look, you have a story like this where some restaurant is collapsing, where there's some major layoffs, okay? People are losing their jobs left and right. It's just not good. It's really not.
And keep in mind, even if Red Lobster does end up filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, they would still be able to stay open, although it appears it could be with fewer locations to choose from.
So, Richard, is Red Lobster now looking for a new owner?
Yeah, the people that bought it, Thai Union, they said they're selling it, basically. They want out, they're divesting. But, who's going to get it? Who knows? It could end up being a fire sale. If there's some investor out there who wants to buy a popular restaurant chain for cheap, this might be their opportunity.
I know Anna has a lot to say.
Oh yeah, you're
We can still
passionate
get-
about
we
this.
can-
Yeah.
Yes, we can still get the cheese biscuits though, right?
The Cheddar Bay biscuits?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, you can buy the mix in the store, but I don't think it's the same.
Okay, but at least you can still get your hands on it. And
Exactly.
Try.
Yeah, I would probably stay away from Red Lobster, right? I probably wouldn't touch Red Lobster unless it's stupid cheap, okay? Which it could be, right? It could be, but it's still something I probably would stay away from. I just don't think that it's the brand that it used to be. But again, my point is that once again, you have another casualty of the Biden economy. And it probably could have survived had we not been in the conditions that we're in right now. But because we're in the conditions that we're in, it kind of just, was the nail in the coffin for this restaurant. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.